Welcome to the Writers Are People Too podcast, where you might just find that you shouldn't meet the writer of your heroes. Tonight, we have with us, in his words, probably the only construction worker in Pittsburgh with 2 master's degrees and 5 published books, Kevin Kramer. So, Kevin, tell me a little bit about yourself, including these degrees that you speak of.
Yeah, that's a pretty apt description. My name is Kevin Kramer. I am from Pittsburgh, and I wrote a book called American Grunt: Ridiculous Stories of a Life Lived at $8 an Hour. I'm a construction worker. I've been working construction for about the last 10 years. It's just sort of something I fell into, and it was. I don't know. I thought it was a relatively interesting journey. I've had like 70, 80, 90, 100 jobs over the years. And I feel like we've all had those terrible jobs, where you're just like, you wonder, you just don't want to get out of bed. And you wonder.
What trade specifically are you in?
What's that?
What trade specifically are you in?
Oh, I do a little bit of everything. Do a lot of masonry, a lot of carpentry, a lot of demo, just sort of whatever kind of comes up. I work for my buddy's construction company, so we do a lot of house flipping, things of that nature. So it just sort of whatever comes up. I was actually like, let's see, it was yesterday. I was at a bar. I was spent 6 hours in the walk-in cooler, freezing my butt off on a 90-degree day. Actually, trying to.
Not too cool, huh?
Yeah, no, not at all. But it was weird. My glasses would fog up every time I stepped out of it, and I was in there just scrubbing down the walls, for 6 hours in a walk-in cooler, trying to. Kind of bashing my knees off of beer kegs for 6 hours. It was an interesting day.
So what's your original education in then?
So my original education is my original degree is in communication, which is kind of one of those degrees that nobody really can define. It's just here it is. A little bit about media, and a little bit about public relations, and there, head out into the world. So I got that, and I ended up working at a bookstore for a while, and sort of decided I wanted to do something a little bit more worthwhile, and at least for me. And I had done a lot of different things with coaching and camping, like being a camp counselor and things like that. So I knew that working with kids I found really, really rewarding. So I ended up going to Penn State and getting my master's degree in secondary school counseling. So it's essentially a dual education adolescent psychology degree. And I was a school counselor for a while. And then all the while I was writing plays, which had, been put on around the country, just kind of randomly. I was a lot of one-act plays. I was doing a lot of stuff at different festivals and whatnot. And that sort of led to an opportunity to go out to California, to University of California at Riverside, where I actually got my second master's in playwriting and screenwriting.
Awesome.
So that's So which is essentially why I spend my days in freezers scrubbing walls.
Well, slightly off topic from your book, but I actually am on a project right now doing a short film. So maybe I'll shoot you my 15-minute script, and you can critique it before we start shooting.
I would love to do that. I do that all the time. I literally, just before we sat down, I finished a project for a guy that I know. I literally just wrote Fade Out like about 5 minutes before we sat down. So that was pretty satisfying project I've been working on for about 3 or 4 months now. So it was
Nice.
pretty cool. But absolutely,
Awesome.
Send it my way.
Will do. So your book, American Grunt: Ridiculous Stories of a Life Lived at $8 an Hour. So right off the bat, I see that you've died nearly 3 times at work. And in your title, you're likening the American blue collar experience to going to war. So tell me about these experiences you've had and what you mean by this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I mean, first of all, I think one of the things that kind of gets overlooked a lot of the times is that when you're a blue collar worker, and I came from blue collar people. I mean, my dad ended up he was a chemistry teacher, but he started off. I mean, we're from Pittsburgh. Everybody like their dad or their uncle or somebody worked in the steel mill,
Mm.
and so like blue collar people have a really really rich, like a very very rich environment and a very very rich thought processes that a lot of people don't, that are, maybe the so-called elites, because I've kind of got one foot in both, kind of both places, that they don't see very often. um and I mean, kind of to circle back to your question, like, yeah, I almost died in a warehouse when I was 19, when I got it was I don't know, it was a couple of 1,000 pound crate of window and door tracks, fell off of a forklift and kind of crushed the front of the little buggy that I was driving in. I missed that by inches.
Wow.
And and the thing was, it was crazy because like you had to do this or this, like you had to go back and forth by just doing that on the buggy, and I messed it up every time. Like every time I wanted to go backwards, I went forward first, and that was the only time I can recall that I actually went backwards immediately. And if I would have screwed it up like I always did, I'd be dead. I would have had a couple of 1,000 pound metal crate of window and door tracks drop on my head.
Wow.
And then yeah, there was another time when I was cleaning. I cleaned rental cars for a very long time. A lot of the book is about my various weird experiences cleaning out rental cars and driving people around. And one time we're still not sure. There are people that I know that saw it and they swear I got hit by lightning, but I'm pretty sure that I didn't, because I think that's something that like you're pretty certain you got hit by lightning. But apparently a bolt of lightning hit within inches of me, and somehow nothing happened to me. It actually blew out all the power in the 10-story building that I was, the car, the car wash was at. And somehow I came out of it. I jumped in the air and ran away.
A few years ago, I had this. A few years ago, I had this freak obsession. Oh, sorry, there's a little bit of lag going on. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, the other guy that I was working with swore that I got hit, and he the rest of the time we worked together, you're the devil. You got hit by lightning and survived and just ran away. So yeah, and then
there's stories of people getting hit, multiple times. I guess there's a park ranger in Yosemite. He may have passed away now. I heard about this a while ago, but he got hit, 7 or 8 times when he was working throughout his career. And you can definitely survive. And I had this sick obsession a few years ago with electricity and what it does to the human body. I bought a taser and I'd tase myself for fun. Again, it was a sick obsession. And I was doing a little bit of research on
yourself to me.
And I was doing a little bit of research on getting struck by lightning, and apparently you can feel it in the air before it happens, and all your hair will stand on end, and you'll hear like a buzz. So did you experience that, or what happened with that?
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing. I describe it in the book where it was a thunderstorm, but it had just been, it was just starting. Like it was essentially just starting almost right over our parking lot. And so it wasn't even raining. And I had gone out to grab some keys from our intern who was driving a minivan somewhere else, and she needed to give me these keys. So I went and grabbed them, and all of a sudden, as I'm out there, I'm only 20 steps away from the building, and it starts just these big drops of rain just start, and I was like, oh, and I looked up into the cloud that was above us. I went, oh wow, and I can still see it. There was like a spark, and it zipped over and hit a part of the other cloud, and I felt something really buzzy and weird, and I went, whoa, what? And then out of nowhere, just it was like somebody cracked like an Indiana Jones whip on my left shoulder, just boom, and I just went, oh Jesus, and I just sprinted back into the garage, and then I had to pick up a customer, and so I just grabbed the keys and left. And the guy who saw it, apparently it freaked him out. So the guy who saw it and our intern both said they were on opposite sides of me, and they were both like, "Hey, you know you got hit by lightning, right?" And I was like, maybe. So I have no idea. Maybe I'm the guy from Unbreakable. I have no idea.
I always do a little bit of light stalking on all the authors that come in. And I was watching another interview that you did with somebody else, and you said, I've worked with a ton of absolute morons in all of my blue collar jobs.
Yep.
So my question for you then would be, what are some of the dumbest things you've witnessed in your coworkers or you do? And you ever see any Darwin Awards or anything like that?
Oh my God. We don't have enough time. Let's see. Dumbest thing. I mean, I can give you one that's not even actually in the book. One that I had to cut out. I'll try to. So there's this guy, and I talk about him in the book. Can't remember what I named him. I always change everybody's names so that, for plausible deniability. I think I called him Daryl or something like that. And he was this hick from Tennessee who just thought he knew everything about everything, and everybody else was the dumbest son of a bitch in the world. And he kept talking about how he'd been electrocuted. He was just, I've been electrocuted 3 or 4 times. So like kind of going back to the lightning thing. And we're like, okay. So we were fixing our roof, and the electricity came in up near the gutter. So he was on a giant metal ladder up, trying to fix some shingles on the roof. And he couldn't reach. He had to reach underneath this electric wire, and he just, I can't do this. There's no way to reach around the wire. And I just kept telling him, I'm like, Daryl, take the ladder down, shift it to the right 4 feet, and then reach the shingles. There's no way I could do this. There's no way. He just keeps going off, and I couldn't get him to understand that if he just took the ladder down and moved it 4 feet, he could reach what he needed to reach. These are the types of people who, like, I don't know. There's just so many people that don't have any sense whatsoever. And especially in the construction field, you work with them all the time. Like, just all the time.
Well, you'd think common sense would be common, right?
It is not. Yeah, like that is something that I'm trying to teach. I mean, my boy is 10 years old, and he asks questions like, hey, this kid did this thing. And so I'm like, buddy, most people are stupid. It's like, I hate to break it to you, but most people are dumb. And,
well, here's the funny thing. If you ask anyone what their intelligence level is, they will most likely say, oh, I'm above average. But statistically speaking, most people are average. That is like the definition of average. But most people think they are above average in anything. What kind of driver are you? I'm above average. What kind of gamer are you? I'm above average. But everyone's probably average.
The only people that are smart are the people that will actually say, yeah, I am. I'm not real good at that. Like, they understand their limitations. Mm-hmm. They know things. But yeah, I think, what is the quote? I wish, I can't remember who said it, but it was smart people go around questioning themselves all the time, while the idiots are are very, very certain about their convictions.
Yeah, I've heard plenty of quotes similar to that. Gosh, I kind of want to look them up right now, but one of them would be like, I am wise because I know that I do not know is one of them.
Exactly.
And then there's another one. Gosh, I'm going to butcher this one, but it's like, I wish that the world were full of more people that were intelligent, because the intelligent people are uncertain of themselves, but those who are unintelligent are more certain of themselves and do stupid stuff. Again,
Yeah,
incredibly
exactly.
butchered. But
No, well, and here's the thing: you're intelligent because you knew you butchered.
well, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and you run across that all the time. I mean, and the really interesting thing is that I've worked so many jobs that are, all of my jobs haven't been blue collar. Like I've been a professor, I've been a teacher, I've done a lot of things. And you run across those people no matter what profession that you're in. The people that are wrong and certain they're right and just won't listen. Just absolutely won't listen to reason whatsoever. And that is it's interesting because I actually thought about it the other day when I was going back to the walk-in freezer. As I was in there contemplating things, I realized, there are shitty days at work, and then there's just shitty work, and they're not necessarily the same thing. Like I was doing shitty work, but I was in there by myself, and I didn't have any idiots bothering me. Most of the really, really terrible days I've had at work are just because there's somebody who just, they have no idea what they're doing, and they need you to do the thing that they think makes sense that makes no sense, and they're on your butt about it and yelling at you and stuff. And yeah, those are the worst days. The worst days involve other people. They pretty much always involve other people.
I think you should consider a profession as a writer, because you don't have to talk to too many people.
Yeah, I have considered that. In fact, it would be it would be nice if see, that's the thing is, I love talking to other writers because they know not only how solitary it is a lot of the times, but they know how tough it is. Like I would love to just be a writer. I would love to not have to go into the walk-in freezer and scrub the ceiling. But money. Like I have kids, man, and they like doing things like eating food,
having a roof over their head,
having a roof. They don't like being rained on while they're sleeping. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the things that I do that aren't necessarily the most fun things in the world that I do for money are mostly because I love writing and want to be able to pursue it and keep pursuing it, even though it's not particularly lucrative at this point. I mean, it's such a tough place it's such a tough thing to break into. I mean, like carpentry, I mean, half the time, like you just have to not be drunk. Like you have to,
which is still hard for a lot of the people.
Yeah, exactly. And or not necessarily carpentry, but just regular labor or construction. You just have to show up and not be high, not be drunk. Show up when you're supposed to, and not take 9.5 hour smoke break. They're like, okay, well, this guy's a good worker.
Yeah. Well, you're bordering a topic which comes up nearly every interview that I've ever done, which is writing for money versus writing because you love it. And we all, like you said, we all have to put a roof over our head and feed our kids. But most people write because they have this story inside them that needs to come out. And I think that's noble. And you shouldn't push that aside just because I can't make money at it. You should still do it. Even if you only write one book one time, I think that's a noble endeavor.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what our existence is. I mean, so much of our existence is telling each other stories and trying to entertain each other. And I used to tell my students all the time, I was like, you as a writer, your main job is to make other people realize that they're not alone. Like that for you is your main job. And I would ask them all the time because I was a screenwriting professor. So we were actually dealing much more, with the money aspect because, films most of the time you're trying to raise millions of dollars. At least like even for a small film, you're trying to raise $100,000, which is an unbelievable amount for somebody like like me, and like most people that are out there. But so I would ask them like, okay, what would you rather have? Would you rather have your film be seen by, a million people and have it affect no one? Or would you rather it be seen by 100 people and those 100 people like took something from it that changed their lives for the better? Like now the 101 with the hundreds, you make barely any money. With the other one, you're living comfortably. You got a pool with a slide and like all kind of different stuff, but you've affected nobody essentially. Like, what's your choice? And it would be a really interesting discussion when we talked about that. And it transcends. I mean, it's any story, no matter what the medium, whether it's film or stage or print. That's kind of what we're all looking to do. We just want to affect somebody else positively with the ridiculous stuff that's goes up in our brains sometimes.
You're pricking my conscience right now, because I go back and forth often as to whether or not this very channel is an endeavor that's worth my time, because I've been doing it for a while now, and it's not, I'm not Mr. Beast. I don't have 36 million views per video within a week, and I wish I did, because then I would have all this money and it'd be great. But I think I've learned so much from talking to authors, and I hope the 100 or so people that watch my videos really do gain some value from it. And so, I think I'll keep doing it just because of you. Thanks.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that's the thing is, we're trained to see success as something that, success in a lot of ways is something that people tell us we have achieved, when really it is more like, if you feel you're a success, then you are. It's we don't have to have that outside confirmation. That's where a lot of us get depressed and get off track and whatnot, is that we're not getting the outside confirmation that what you've done is worthy, to the masses. And success isn't predicated on how good you are at all, or whether your story is worthy, or whether what you write is worthy. Success is literally dictated by 58 gatekeepers that are out there that they like certain things or whatnot. I mean, that's that happens to all of us. But it doesn't mean, just because you don't find commercial success doesn't mean that what you created isn't worth something. And that's the thing that we tend to lose track of. and I've done it plenty, trust me. I have to try to remind myself that all the time.
Yeah. So going back to the trades a little bit, a little background on me. I actually come from the restoration industry, so firewater damage restoration. Long story short, I was in college and I dropped out because I hated it, and I went and started temping for a restoration company, and then I hated that even more, so I went back to college. And then it's funny because you were talking about working in this freezer and thinking about yourself, and I found there's a lot of time for self-reflection when you're doing work like that. Like, I specifically remember I was in somewhere in Ventura County in Southern California, and it was like I was in a 115 degree attic in full PPE pulling all this smoke damaged insulation for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And had a lot of time for self-reflection. And every time you move your head, you get smashed by the nails that are coming through the roof.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You got these little, I mean, like, well, especially you can't usually see the ones that are on my head because but I got little puncture wounds, like all in here from attics. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're speaking the same language, man. Absolutely.
We've both been there. And now you have had this other experience as well of being well educated and being a professor and, the 98 other jobs that you said. So what keeps you returning to the trades? Is it working with your hands? Like, because I feel like there is a sense of accomplishment when you look at a room that was fully intact 8 hours ago and now it's fully demoed out. Like, I understand that sense of accomplishment that you don't always get through office work, which I do now. So what keeps you going back?
Well, and kind of the opposite way. Whereas, when you demo it out and it's just the studs and plaster and lath all over the place and soot and drywall and all this stuff, and you look at this place and you can't envision that anybody would ever inhabit it. And then, a couple months later, you're looking at it and it's got these spectacular doors and new windows and cabinets. And, somebody comes in, and a realtor comes in, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you're like, yeah, I did that. It is,
yeah,
it really is. Cause you're right. I've had office jobs where it's just like, you're just essentially just doing busy work for no reason. It's just the same work comes in, it goes out, and it never stops. And you never get that sense of, oh wow, I achieved something. It's like, one of the last. So the place that I was in, the freezer, is a bar that I built, and now it's it's a destination in Pittsburgh here. It's right across from the Duquesne Incline, which looks down on the city. So we get tourists from all over the world coming into our restaurant, and I do a lot of maintenance there now. It's pretty cool to see people, 100 people in there eating burgers and drinking beers and laughing and having a good time in a place that I built. It's pretty cool. I mean, in all honesty, the reason that I keep going back is mainly my boss. Like, I've been working for him for 10 years. He's a buddy of mine. He takes care of me. I've had a lot of bosses who were just idiots that were just motivated by greed or just power or whatnot, and they could care less. It's just, you're just a number in their bottom line. And I've been working for this guy for 10 years. I know he's going to take care of me. I know he's going to give me work. He's going to give me really crappy work, and he's going to thank me whenever I'm done. He's going to be like, yeah, no, that sucked, but thanks. At least he thanks me instead of saying, so, I mean, the personalities of the people that are in charge is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Whenever you're working in these type of jobs, obviously.
Most definitely. So, those who are working the trades are not often associated with creativity. It's more about, being a hard worker and good with your hands and maybe being rough around the edges and drinking and smoking and all the stuff we've kind of talked about. Yep. How do you reconcile being a creative tradesman, and are you ridiculed for it by your coworkers?
That's a really interesting question. It's weird. I hate to say it, but I dumb myself down when I'm there. Like I talk about, and actually I tell a funny story in my book about it, because I had to jump back and forth. When I was a professor, I would literally sometimes go right from demoing a house to like a faculty meeting, and I didn't have time to change, and I'd be, covered in drywall. Like,
pay the professors more, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so in Pittsburgh here, we have an accent. We call the Yinzer accent. It's one of the most annoying accents in the world, and I've been stricken with it since I was a kid, because my family were all, like, my grandfather worked on the railroad, and like I said, my dad worked in a steel mill before he became a teacher, and just around it all the time. And it sounds like this, so you talk like this, and like the OW diphthong is an ah. So, like, sit on a couch. We're going to sit on a brown couch. And it comes out. I mean, it's going to come out now. I've been using my professor voice as we were talking, and my regular voice will come out now. But that's how I talk when I'm around all those guys, because I don't necessarily want them knowing because then you get like, Mr. Smarty Pants over here. Like as soon as you screw something up, where's that 150 IQ now, buddy? And I know. So, it kind of comes down like my best friend's a butcher, and he was a really amazing comedic actor. And we worked at all these different supermarkets and stuff, and he worked with the, same kind of blue collar guys. And when he had to tell them, he eventually was trying to tell them like, oh yeah, I got to go. I'm in a play. So I gotta get out a little early. And they're like, you're in a play? And he told me, it was like I just told them that I juggled ducks. It was like the reaction, was the same type. And he was just like, I quit telling them about it. So it is weird. You definitely have to shift. You have to kind of downshift to just sort of be accepted. But I mean, I don't really mind.
Here's the meta question then.
Mm-hmm.
What if everybody has this creative side and every single person is afraid to show it because they think they're going to be ridiculed?
That would be, and that is meta. That is absolutely meta. It's funny. I wonder about that sometimes. You wonder what goes through other people's heads, all the time. Because I mean, for me, and I assume you as well, because you have this podcast, you're a writer and whatnot, like 80% of what's going through my head is not reality. You're driving in your car and you don't really know how you got there, or you're in the shower. Like the amount of times I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about a story and I'm like, wait, did I wash my hair? Like, did I,
I never have to worry about that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Like, did I do my pits? Like, what did I do? Have I even put soap on? I have no idea. Because I'm not thinking, I'm thinking about something ridiculous, or some story, like I'm in space, or like I'm not in the shower, I'm in space, or I'm in, like a fight, like I'm in a boxing ring, or some ridiculous like that. But yeah, it would be interesting if other people were all doing that as well. But I don't think they are.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think everyone is perhaps as, highbrow creative as we are. We'll just jerk each other off for a second. But I feel like everybody has a little bit of creativity inside them. Like maybe they're musically inclined, or maybe they're artistically inclined, or maybe they have their own comedic wit in some ways. Like I played rugby for many years as well, and it's interesting because like that's also like something that's very macho, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on machoism and creativity in a second here.
Yeah.
But it's like, how many of these people that I know next to nothing about other than on the pitch, which is, okay, that guy's a good tackler, that guy's a good kicker, that guy can pass and catch, whatever it is, I know next to nothing about them and their creative side. So do you think that machoism really represses creativity, or is it like when guys get around each other, they like to dumb themselves down because they don't want to get picked on? Like, well, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
That's an awesome question. I think yes. I mean, I think that does suppress it a little bit, because it seems like you're an artist. Like it's that type of deal. And I was an athlete forever. I played baseball in college. And like those guys, when I went down there, I was 18, and I was intimidated by the upperclassmen and stuff already. I didn't want them to know that like, I'm a creative writing minor. I write poetry. Like we're like, they would give a shit. They'd be like, what the fuck? Well, I mean, if you didn't write poetry, you could be throwing 95, you sissy. Like your 88 mile an hour cut fastball, you could put that up there if you just didn't write poetry, But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We don't like showing that side to each other. It's just something obviously innate, and that has to go back millions of years somehow. Whereas we don't want to show that soft side, or what's considered a softer side to each other, because then you think, now we're gonna have to now this guy thinks he has the power, and then we're gonna get into a fight at some point, and he's gonna try to kick my ass, and Like that's just the way. That's the way a lot of us think. I mean, not all of us, obviously, but like the macho, like like you said, the rugby guys, the baseball, football, construction. I mean, I haven't run across a lot of construction guys who, I would think like, oh, I'd be comfortable sharing this. Hey, what do you think of my idea for this time travel script? Like, they'd probably throw a hammer at you.
Well, but it is always a pleasant surprise when you do come across those people. Like one of my rugby coaches, Lance, I had him on the podcast a while ago. He's actually a writer who's been writing for 40 years or whatever it is, and it's cool when you come across those people. One of my teammates, Guy, I had him on as well on the podcast, and it's cool to come across these creative macho guys as well. So if you're out there, anyone who's listening, don't be afraid to show your intellectual side. We're not going to ridicule you for it too much.
Yeah, and eventually you get old enough to be like, fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah.
It was like, but yeah, I mean, and I think, kind of, following up on your point, like when you do find those guys, like that forms a really instant friendship because you're like, oh, wait a minute, you understand what I'm going through. Like you understand, like, okay, so let's connect. So, I mean, a lot of my really good friends, I have found that they're athletes, we spend half the time, bitching about the Steelers draft or free agency or whatever. And the other, time we're like, hey, let me run this idea by you. And like, it does when as a guy who, has those, for lack of a better term, macho tendencies, like when you find somebody that also shares that stuff, it can lead to pretty cool things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So another question before we get to your excerpt. Practically, how do you find the time and energy to be creative after a hard day's work?
I would say it's because it relaxes me. It's the thing that I look forward to the most, honestly. And kind of going back to what we were talking about, a lot of the times I'm doing things by myself. Like, so my boss will be like, hey, here's the materials you need. I need this built or I need this torn down or whatnot. I got to go over to our other property and take care of this, or I got to be. So I'm like, I'm alone, listening to the radio or whatnot, and putting up drywall or patching something or knocking something down or whatnot. And so I've got like 8 hours of just thinking, and that's where my mind goes crazy. And then I'm like, okay, I can't write anything down on this sledgehammer, so I gotta keep it in my head. So when I go home, I can't wait for like 10 o'clock at night once we put the kids to bed and everything, to just sit down and just vomit out all those ideas that I had while I was putting holes in things.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to write late at night, if I can, because it's usually the only time that I have. But it's that time that I block out and I love it, so that's, if that answers your question, that's kind of
yeah, that was good enough.
Okay.
Yeah, did you want to read an excerpt?
Yeah, man, if you want me to, I can
Yeah,
do that.
If you got a couple minutes.
So I think this might so there we go. American Grunt. There we go. This kind of goes back to the moron question. And I spent a lot of time in the book kind of wondering how people without a lot of, not necessarily a lot of intelligence, but also just people skills and whatnot, like how they get into positions of power. So this is kind of a short excerpt about, I was working at a warehouse when I was like 19 in Export, PA, and our boss was the piece of work. So here goes. Other than the aforementioned relationship with time, another big lesson I took from the IDL experience is that intelligence is not necessarily a requirement for leadership. The fact is, I'd discover in job after job, quite often the two are inversely proportional. At 19, however, I was still naive enough to think that hard work and smarts were the main reasons people got promoted into positions of authority. Such were my beliefs until I met Donald. Donald was a guy in his 40s who looked as if he came straight out of the set of a low-budget porn film. He had greasy, curly hair, a big black mustache, wore polo shirts with lots of unnecessary flair, and had a perpetual look on his face that suggested he wasn't certain if the fart he let out came with a drink. And holy shit, it was astounding, this crap that he got away with, only to stroll back in the next day still in charge of things. About 2 weeks in, something went wrong at the end of the line. I was gathering dividers when I heard Donald yell, "You stupid son of a bitch!" And then a random screwdriver hit the concrete floor a few feet away from me and went skidding off. As Donald stomped and ranted, I turned to the guy next to me. "Did you just see a screwdriver go skipping by us?" Wide-eyed, he answered, "Yeah, Donald just threw it at Marty." Further background here. Marty was a dude in his 50s who mentally approached things much more slowly and more deliberately than those he worked around. And he wasn't the only one. Because of the repetitive nature of the work, IDL was a perfect job for people who most likely fell somewhere on the autism spectrum. As I'd find out, Donald's anger was almost always directed at these people, the ones he knew wouldn't fight back. I started contemplating what would have happened if the screwdriver had accidentally hit me, or God forbid he'd thrown it at me directly. I inherently knew what my reaction should be: immediately walk off the job, call the temp agency, and then own IDL. But I'm pretty certain at 19, I'd have given the screwdriver back to Donald at the speed of one of my fastballs, which at that point were sitting in the low 90s, and we'd have all gotten to see an ambulance. How Donald retained his job, I have no idea. The only thing I can fathom is that he had pictures of the owner desecrating grave sites. One time he got so mad at Harry for not driving the forklift fast enough that he pushed Harry out, hopped in, stopped on the gas, and zipped from one end of the warehouse to the other. Unfortunately, in his haste and foolishness, he left the forks up and blasted into every single hanging fluorescent light in the back of the warehouse, one after the other. They went swinging on their chains back and forth, crashing into each other like one of those perpetual motion tchotchkes with the silver balls. The whole warehouse flinched as glass and plastic rained down from the ceiling. Of course, Donald obliviously drove off, only to come back 5 minutes later, see all the debris all over the floor, and yell, "Who the fuck broke all the lights?"
Nice. That was great.
Thank you.
That was amazing. So I love your humorous tone. Is that perpetual throughout the entire book?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the point. Is, like, life sucks a lot of the times, and you're doing a lot of shitty things a lot of the time, but damn it, it's hilarious. like work is hilarious.
Well, you just have to look at it with with rose-colored glasses sometimes, or else it is just too shitty.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I try to look at things as much as I possibly can through, oh my God, this is going to be an amazing story someday. It's not right now. I'm pretty pissed off about this right now, but holy shit, in a week, I'm going to be laughing my ass off at this. And, so yeah, the book is, I remember the humorous things a lot more than I remember the other stuff. Because, I mean, I've written them all down, obviously, so I can go back for reference, but they're the things that, they're the things that you remember after, 30 some years of busting your ass. Yeah.
So would you say that this is simply an autobiography of some of your interesting life events, or do you have any deeper messages?
What's really interesting is, so I started off I have another book. I've played championship level ultimate frisbee for the last 25 years, and I wrote a book that came out in 2017 about that kind of journey, and it was humorous and everything. I had read A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson, and I want to try something like that. And so I did that, and it was well received. So during the pandemic, I didn't have anything to do a lot of the time. So I was like, I just woke up one day. I was like, wait a minute. What about my other book? But instead about ultimate frisbee, it's about all my shitty jobs. And I just went downstairs and started writing. So yeah, I mean, what was the original question? I'm sorry, I went off.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Do you have any like deeper messages, or is this just entertaining life experiences?
Yeah, so I decided to write that, and then what I realized along the way is that instead of just kind of an amalgam of funny stories, it was actually a pretty it was a much deeper mental health journey that I didn't really know that I was on when I had started it. A journey toward acceptance of where I was. Because I mean, I got really, really close to being very well off and very famous. Like, or not, I mean, as famous as a screenwriter can be. I had a couple of movies that had big stars in them, very, very close to being made. And then it just, through things out of my control, sort of all collapsed, so, because of things like the writer's strike of '07 and, the recession in '08 and everything. And things just didn't quite work. I was on like the 1 yard line and just, I couldn't get the ball into the end zone. And so I was kind of bitter for a long time. Like, oh, Jesus Christ, I should have been on the set of my movie right now instead of washing freaking rental, cleaning glitter and dog hair out of rental cars. It sucks. So it led to some anger issues. And
so real quick, let's pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
Were these things that were all out of your control because of, like you said, the writer's strike, or were these things that, looking back, you could have influenced? And if so, what advice do you have for people in that position?
I mean, I wish I could tell you that I fucked it up because I could accept that a lot easier.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was out of my control. Like, I mean, I tell people, I'm like, you want to talk about bad luck? Like, my very first book, you can look at it. You can look it up. I mean, it's not a great book. I wrote it when I had mono when I was in high school, and it needed a serious editor. But I was really, really excited when it came out. It came out in. I couldn't wait to promote it and everything. And you can look right now on Amazon.com and see Stormtrooper by Kevin Kramer. And if you look at the published date, that date is September the 11th, 2001. Like, that's the
so
type
the news
of
was on other stuff.
Yeah, that's the type of crap that has happened to me. And so, like, in some ways, I wish that it would have been me that screwed it up, because it's a little easier to take, I think, like, because you can actually do something about it. You can actually change something about yourself or, the way things are. But the fact that the universe kind of did it over and over and over, it was very hard to take. It was because you don't really have anything to blame it on. I mean, and so, I kind of got pretty angry, and, but eventually, like, what I realized is, like, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I got, not necessarily happy, but I'm healthy, I got great kids, I got a great family, I get to write, I get to sit down and write, I still get to play the sports that I want, and, just because I gotta sometimes be, ankle deep in sewage, like, yeah, all right, like,
call the restoration companies for that.
But yeah, exactly. They have Matt Stroven to in college to do that.
I don't do that anymore. I'm retired from that part.
Well, they have you in 20 years ago or 15 years ago or however long it is. But yeah,
you gave me a little bit of advice
that I didn't expect.
I was going to say, you gave me a little bit of advice in regard to my YouTube channel, so I'm going to give you a little bit of advice, and that's just keep creating. And stick it to the universe and say, screw you, I'm going to get this done. And you'll come across something someday.
That's what I keep doing. The amount of times, and I'm sure it's the same for you and every writer watching this, the amount of times you've said, screw it, I'm done. That's it. Never doing it again. And then, the next day, oh, there's a nugget of an idea in here. And you try to be like, no, you try to tamp it down, and it just overtakes, and you just got to go do it. So the amount of time I've quit 150 times. And then, And then, came back to it.
It's funny. I always have the fantasy. I'm like, okay, what if this book that I write takes off and I become a multimillionaire? What if this screenplay, whatever it is, what if I become so wealthy I never have to work again? What would I do with my time? And I keep coming back to, I would probably keep writing stories.
Yep.
And so, I kind of need to just be content with whether or not I have fuck you money, I'm still going to be writing, and I should just be happy with that anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if I had nothing else to do, I'd still sit down at my computer and come up with stuff. And I'm pretty sure that at some point in the 2060s, I will keel over at whatever passes for a keyboard, writing something, and then that'll be it. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to be the end of me. But I'll be telling the story till the end, and I think a lot of people, that's kind of a good way to go out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, any final comments?
No, just thank you very much for letting me talk about the book. If anybody wants to go purchase it, I mean, I swear to God, you'll laugh, and you'll really enjoy it. I mean, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it literally anywhere on the internet. Just type in Kevin Kramer, American Grunt, and it should lead you there.
All right.
So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll put a link to the book in the description. Everybody, Kevin Kramer.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.